Don't bother children while they're skateboarding.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I'd like to welcome my first guest to the podcast that'll now be called Venture, as was formerly known as Red House. But I'm taping today in my little apartment in Providence, Rhode Island. I've been making myself at home and going to the dog parks, going to the nearby parks where I happen to have met my guest for today. So I'm with my guest, Kenneth Weinreich, today. Thank you for coming by over
No
here
problem.
and hanging out.
For sure.
Kenneth, this new podcast structure, you were just telling me that you had got to check out some of the stuff I was doing to Red House.
Yep.
As you might have seen, that was kind of a lot about artists in the state of North Carolina and just kind of getting, I don't know, just kind of talking about the ways that I related to them. And you're one of the first artists I've met here in Providence since I moved here. So I thought it was a great opportunity. You and I met at the dog park,
Yep.
sitting with our little furry friends.
Yep.
So yeah, I was really excited to get to talk to an artist and an artist of a different medium. So let's go ahead, get a little bit of a bio on your story, where it started, where you're from, and also what led you to the arts.
Yeah. So I grew up in, first of all, my name's Kenneth Weinreich. I grew up in Wakefield and Narragansett, which is southern Rhode Island, down by the beaches, by the coast. And yeah, I grew up to a single mom and then a mixed family. I grew up in Wakefield, went to South Kingstown High School. I graduated in 1999, the golden era, right, of hip hop and all that fun shit. You know, I dabbled in a bunch of arts. I was really interested in art and music growing up. I was a DJ for a little while, more like scratch beat production. I dived into graffiti for a long time and other art too, just like obscure music, all types. Just it was nice making art and having fun times with friends and connecting on that level. And then I've been a chef since I started working. I think started working in kitchens at 13 at Yagoo ski area, which is the local ski valley. It's not quite a mountain. And then from there, I worked at many different restaurants in Rhode Island until I moved away, and I've just been in culinary since then.
Nice.
Yeah.
What is Wakefield like?
Wakefield is like your classic downtown, old town. You know, they've got Main Street, they've got the schools and neighborhoods. It's a big soccer-based a town. Narragansett, Rhode Island, that area, Massachusetts, Connecticut, is big sports like soccer and stuff like that. Soccer's huge in this area. So that was a big thing when I was going to high school. I played soccer in middle school and stuff, but I never played in high school.
Okay, and so were you all already, like back in Wakefield, were you already kind of finding yourself gravitating toward this thing that was more creativity and less of the sports oriented stuff?
So I definitely liked sports, but I think I also gravitated towards friendships and experiences. So when sports for me started to get more serious and less fun is when I gravitated towards, like, we won't call them team sports because, like, skating, snowboarding, they're not necessarily not team sports, but when you start to get into them, they're very solitary, right? You go skate by yourself, you start to learn and meet friends because you're skating with them, and maybe they accept you into their tight friend group. So when I was growing up, skating and snowboarding was, kind of a solidarity sport unless you were competing. And not a ton of people were competing yet. I wanted to get to that point when I started because I was like, this is really cool. We just started doing this, and I think that is what really I gravitated to, was building friendships and not having it be serious sport competitive.
Yeah, because when I'm thinking about when I was rollerblading and skateboarding, it was about, hey, do you guys want to like take all these risks together? But it wasn't so much like, yeah, that the direct competition, I guess, is what you're describing.
You're building each other up. Like, say somebody can do a trick better than you, but you're like, sweet, they're pushing me to do something I've never tried. Things like that. Whereas like organized sports, it's like there's only one directive we have to be as good as this as possible. If you're not, we're going to grind on you until you are, because you're the weakest link.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and there are things about that aspect of sports that I like too. But for the most part, when I was growing up, I wasn't super drawn to that.
Yeah. Not to mention, it's like we have to defeat the other people who are also trying to be good at this.
Right.
It's directly.
Don't get me wrong. Healthy competition, really awesome for growing up.
Yeah. And I mean, I loved it. I played sports all through school, but I wasn't as good. I did rollerblade. I, in fact, have a pair of rollerblades in my closet right there that I got for my birthday last year. But I liked shit like that. Never was as good at skateboarding.
I think rollerblade's coming back, though.
Is it?
Yeah, there's a bit of a resurgence coming back. I've seen it.
I love that.
Yeah.
Because that's my domain more so than the other stuff. But graffiti and skateboarding, do these things go together?
Yeah, they go together for sure. I think graffiti in general goes together with growing up, teenage angst, listening to music that isn't super pop and stuff like that. It gives you an outlet to express yourself freely wherever you are.
Graffiti.
Yeah.
So this is something that I like, for me especially. I didn't grow up with, like, that was not a normal thing. And I think for us, I lived in a small town outside of a little city. You could think of it as a major city for North Carolina because they're small cities, but graffiti is this whole other thing. And I know that the trains that roll by are tagged and like some of the buildings are, but it's not
some of the freight trains and stuff like that. Yeah.
But here I've noticed quickly that there's a lot of it, and beyond, like, not only do you have a lot of murals, but like I mentioned to you, I just went to what's the name of the fort I just went to?
Fort Wetherall in Jamestown.
Wetherall, yeah.
Yep.
I mean, it's such a work of art. It's so interesting. Maybe you can just illuminate a little bit of what that's like as a kid, of that angst of doing graffiti, because I just never would have thought to have done that when I was a kid.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first time I ever felt strongly or wanted to do it was you're spending hours upon hours, let's say summer and even before winter, at a skate park where you claim as your own. It's your hometown skate park. You feel good being there. When you roll up, you're trying to teach little kids. It's just a community vibe, right? So I think the first time I ever was I'm gonna, and it's not so much, I don't want to use the word claim, because then that makes it a little more turfy. But you want to express that you love this place, you like being here, and it's definitely yours. Yeah, I mean, I took my grease pen out and wrote my name out, and it felt really good. And then you start to do it in places that you always frequent, maybe, right? Or places that you the other vibe on that is places that you don't always associate with you being there, but you have to be there all the time. So maybe high school, right? Or detention, things like that, right? Where you can act out, but you're being yourself, and you're also showing other people you were being yourself in that space.
So it's kind of like maintaining your own self and maintaining your identity kind of in places where you might not even feel like you can.
I think that's half of graffiti. I think the other half is also expressing and being open or in touch with your environment, right? So there's a little bit of yo, fuck the man, and then the other half is yo, I am the man. Yo, check me out.
That's so interesting.
I did this.
Graffiti seems obviously rebellious.
Yeah, for sure.
Why is skateboarding and surfing rebellious? Why are these thought of as these rebel cultures?
I think I'm at the very end, or the cusp end, of Gen X, right? And I think Gen X is known for what? Extreme sports, extreme ideas, extreme fashion. Those are only three. I'm sure there's more. But those are the big ones, right? Tony Hawk, do a kickflip, skate or die. All these things are associated with maybe that time period. And I think skateboarding was brought or thought to be as an alternative sport is because I talked about earlier, there's no coach. There's no money going into it. There are maybe a little bit of money, but it's not how organized sports are. So people see it as not a viable future. Oh, you're a skateboarder, you should get a job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
that's kind of hurtful. You're putting in time to something that you'd like and you'd love, that's a hobby, but also you see other people becoming pros at it, right? There's a potential there, but people are like shitting on it. And I think the new version of that I have a couple of younger brothers that are like 10 and 12 or 10 and 9 and 10 years younger than me. And I think at that point, that same attitude was kind of portrayed towards gaming. Like, you can't do this as a job. Why are you putting so much time into this, right? Mm-hmm. But they're seeing people that are actually doing that and then becoming, the overlap is that maybe a decade to 5 years later, that's actually happening. And I think the people that are into things like that see it for what it is at the time, and they know where the future is going to go.
Yeah. And you still skate.
Yeah, I still skate. I mean, I'm not, I call falling all the time warming up. I skate. I have 2 little sons, an 8 and a 5-year-old. They skate. They're into it. They say they skate. They know what they're doing. So it's nice to be able to be like, Dad can still skate. I can do 8 tricks without having to warm up. And then after that, I can fuck around. So it's nice to be able to, show them what it's like to be like, let's go fucking skate.
Did you ever do any shit as a kid that was so stupid that you like worry about now passing the torch to the kids?
Like skating wise or just like life wise?
Well, of course life wise, but also skating wise and like mischief wise.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I'm a kid at heart. When I tell stories to my fiance now and I'm telling her stories about me like 2 weeks ago and I refer to myself as a kid and she'll call me out and I'm like, well, that's just how I feel. So like I, when I'm fucking around with the boys skating or we're like on the mountain snowboarding, of course I'm going to push them and I'll show them like little things that I used to do, maybe that I can't still do, but I'll still try them, maybe eat it and just show them that that's what it is.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's very fit. This subject matter is very fitting for like what we're doing here today. So this podcast, the whole venture thing right now, which I'll share with you, as I might have told you when we first met, this is kind of the first time I've really moved away. This is the first time that I've really,
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I lived in North Carolina, like near my hometown, just all through my adulthood so far, and kind of always had
How old are you?
I'm 34 now.
Okay. I'm 43.
Okay. We got reverse numbers going on. There's probably some kind of weird term for that, but
it's probably a Tool song somewhere.
Probably. Yeah, man. So like for me, this new risk factor, I guess, is in my life where I'm like, okay, I feel emboldened a little bit. I feel like I'm kind of jumping out into new territory. And what I guess, what comes to mind, what seems like overlap for skateboarding is something like, from a young age, getting comfortable with like taking risks, getting comfortable with like testing the boundaries and seeing what you're capable of and shit like that. Not that I didn't do that as a kid, but what I just feel like there's a commonality there that I notice, like any kind of extracurricular stuff that requires courage and requires some boldness and some balls. It kind of helps you, I think, in life in some ways. I mean, you come across as a guy who's got some confidence, and I just can't help but assume that your lifestyle up to this point has contributed heavily to that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of things, and skateboarding is like a metaphor, I think, for like, I don't know, life, I guess, because like, maybe you want to start skateboarding, right? And you skateboard a couple of times, you're doing some flat ground, and then you go to the skate park. You feel a little more confident, right? It's giving you some confidence. So you go to the skate park, and then you start to roll up some ramps or whatever. And then maybe you try to drop in, and I feel like dropping in on any transition is the thing that is going to separate a fair weather or a hobbyist to somebody that actually skateboards, right? You're going to fall maybe 2 hard times in skating, and you're going to be like, I don't ever want to do this again. I don't ever want to do this. You're going to get road rash on every elbow, and then when you take a shower, everything's going to sting. Mm-hmm. If you get back up and you don't even clean those shits and go back to the skate park, you're probably going to skate for a while. You're going to know that this is what it entails. And I think any harder venture like skating, snowboarding, something that isn't snowboarding, not so much, because it's, I guess if you start to jump, maybe get into some like slope style snowboarding instead of just snowboarding, and you can also longboard. There's like different variations. See, this is a good conversation right now. There are definitely different paths you can take for the same sport where they're not as serious or damaging or less fun. They can all be fun. It just depends on how serious or how dedicated you want to be to the craft.
Right. That that makes perfect sense. And it is.
And I think in anything.
Yeah.
That can be in cooking. That can be in any venture you want to fucking take. You can take, and I'm not going to say the easy route or like the lazy or whatever. There are maybe 3 different ones. There's, I do this because I love it. I do this because I need to make a living. And I do this because I want to be the best.
Yeah.
That's the 3 paths, right? I think that's it.
Man, I really love that. I really love that.
Because you can do anything you love, right? You can do a bunch of shit that you love. Mm-hmm. Do you do it? There's maybe one thing that you do because you have to, which is bills, living, life, finding somebody, whatever it is. And then there are those things that you do that you leave all those other things alone because you want to be the best at it. And you want to tell everybody you're the best at it. Mm. You know what I mean?
Of those three motivations that you just mentioned, what do you find yourself guided the most by? Because when I heard that, I think, yeah, that's true for me. I definitely have things, and I have music for me, for example, is one thing that I'm like
really good. By the way, I forgot to tell you earlier.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
I appreciate it.
Yeah,
I mean,
it definitely is you too. Because once I met you, and then I went back and looked at your music, I was like, oh, this is totally him.
Yeah. For me, when you say it like that, I probably don't say this out loud very much, but it's one of those things that I've heard successful people talk about. They had like a moment of clarity of like, I want to be the best at this thing. And for me, I know that I have that in the music world, but it's something that I don't really let myself act on that feeling very much. Mm-hmm. I just I try to separate from that. Sure. But I do tons of shit that I do just because I have to. And I do tons of shit that I do because it's enjoyable.
Sure.
Do you find yourself motivated by one of those factors the most in life?
I would say that my approach to life is in between of the latter two. I'm in between, like, I do this because I love this, right? This is awesome. And I'm in between I'm going to leave everything else behind to be the best. I'm going to be in between that. I want to kind of be on the fence in between those two, but I want to love everything I'm doing. So I want to take all 3 into account. And I have been on the far right path, or the third path of wanting to be the best. And I know that it can be a really lonely and selfish path.
Yeah.
You have to have people in your corner that are willing to accept that that's what you want to do. And if you find those people, that's fucking great. That's awesome. And not all the time will family be that. Sometimes if you're on that path and you decide to take, you have these offshoots, sometimes you have to adjust, right? And if you can't mentally adjust and you are always wanting to be the best, that could potentially be your downfall.
I mean, really. I mean, yeah. And especially if you can't tell that you're getting to it. People that come to mind, Kobe Bryant, of course, Michael Jordan and LeBron as well.
Yeah.
Tiger Woods, Taylor Swift. These are people that...
uber successful, right?
Uber successful. And when I hear them talk, I remember like one thing I've heard Kobe say was like, I don't hang out with other basketball players like to hang out or go on vacation. Sure. I do it to continue to build on this skill. Like every moment of his life was meant to add to his greatness.
Legacy, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Right.
And like I've heard Taylor Swift say on a radio interview, like someone was like, once you've won Album of the Year like 3 times, does it get old? And she was like, no, I want it again. I want to win it a 4th time. It's like it never ends. Like you have to continue to just accomplish more and more and more. And I think sometimes I'm intimidated by the pressure of that whole mentality when I say ego driven, I don't mean it in a bad way, but like letting my ego kind of take that much of the driver's seat and be that hungry. Which pulls you into situations maybe you wouldn't normally get into. Yeah. And like that level of like seeing other, like Kobe's description of how he hangs out with other basketball players. Mm-hmm. It's like seeing other people as that much of a part of the system of your greatness or something. It's difficult. I think, I don't know if it's just like you have to have a nature that makes you that way or if that's something that you're supposed to feed, but I find it scary.
It could be something that also that you tend to achieve to. Maybe you weren't starting to do that once everybody saw your greatness. Now you have to keep it up, right? I think with those people that you brought up, I think the one person that is different in that regard, but still the same, is Michael Jordan, right? Because there's that famous story, I think it's from the documentary, where he's playing golf, and I forget the other basketball player's name that he's playing golf with, but they bet like $1. And, Jordan wins, and they're going their separate ways in the hotel, and he's like, yo, I'm going to go get dressed. And Jordan's like, yo, do you have that $1? And he's like, no, it's $1, and he's like, I'm going up to my room. And Jordan's basically like, I'm going to follow you up and get that $1. And he's like, it's $1. And he's like, it's not about the $1. It's the premise that I won. And it's not even about other basketball players. That's a drive in his mind that he needs to win at everything. And that can consume you.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. Let's talk about the negative side of risk taking. And I think we can stay with the metaphor or the lens of skateboarding and sports for a second. My, I think 13th or 14th birthday party I had at a skate park, and invited a couple of my friends. I had this ratty little skateboard, and I could drop in on rollerblades. I could run. I could ride that. I don't know how you'd say that. I'm not legit at all.
Sure.
But I could skate in a half pipe with my friends, and that was fine. But I tried to drop in on a skateboard twice.
Yeah,
I ate it both times.
Totally different.
And then I gave up after that. I never tried to drop in on a half pipe again.
Do you do any winter sports?
I ski. I do things that my feet stay forward.
Snowboard? Okay, got it. Okay, I was about to ask you that question.
Yeah, I tried snowboarding once, and it was one of the more painful days of my life.
Usually, as the first day is always the worst.
Yeah, it was rough, man. I had a pretty bad injury at one point with skating.
Oh, yeah?
I mean, I'm sure that you have. Well, I mean, you have a cast on your arm right now.
Yeah.
I'm sure you have a lot of stories.
Oh yeah, I got a couple injuries. I got some metal in my ankle. That's probably my biggest injury. But I mean, you're always injured skating, right?
Yeah.
And I've done other, I do combat sports as well. So like you're injured in certain sports, and I feel like any sport like that, with maybe the exception of snowboarding, I think snowboarding was the first sport where I ever realized that they were doing like strength training and like things to combat taking hits, And I didn't do that. I didn't know about that. No one ever taught me that, because I was on the East Coast trying to do contests by myself. There was never any coaches or anything like that. So like once I got into sports, like the only coachable sport I ever got into was MMA and jiu-jitsu. And that was later in my life. So like, for the most part, anything I ever did competitively was me entering by myself. Maybe my parents being like, you're doing great. Or my other friends or whoever I'm pushing as well, being like, yo, we're going to do this contest. Do you want to come? And I'm like, shit, I'm 17. Let's see if I can get my day off of work to go do this.
Yeah.
And break myself and maybe not potentially work the next day at work.
What? I mean, like, it's not that I can't relate. I know what it felt like to just not have any, like, I know what it feels like to throw yourself into basketball or to rollerblade and or these things when you're younger, but still, for the sake of the conversation, at the least, what makes us so crazy that, like, especially like if you think of from the perspective of maybe someone who's like, health is all there is and injuries are really bad, and you just, we don't have a safe life, what makes us so crazy that we're willing to throw our bodies into these risky endeavors just in saying fuck it,
Yeah, I think, with the lack of a better term, bragging rights, right? Like, yo, I did this switch, I did this left, whatever it is, right? Because when you show up at the skate park, that's the community you're trying to be involved with, be accepted by, right? If that's what you're putting the most time into at that time and age, when you were rollerblading, right? You had other friends that were there too, right? So like you're showing up and maybe they've been there for an hour and they're already warmed up and you're like, fuck, they're already landing shit. Yep. Or whatever it is, like there's that kid that's there that never talks to you, but he lands the trick that you're always trying to land.
Yep.
Things like that. And that's totally a reflection of real life, I guess, right?
No, it is.
The skate park is a mini cosmos of real life. There's attitudes, there's acceptance, there's bullying, there's all that shit. And it's real small. And it's one dude, three guys, whatever it is. So you're willing to put your health or whatever it is, pride, a lot of the times on the sideline to land something to get acceptance or cheer or whatever it is. Same thing with a touchdown, right? You fucking backside K grind a ledge that you've been trying for months. When you land it, you're going to get that same feeling probably that you get when you got your first pass to touchdown. You're like, fuck yeah, all my hard work paid off. These people are accepting me. I'm super excited. I feel really good. You're going to build on that. After that first time you feel that, regardless if it's at spelling bee, baseball, football, fighting, fencing, skateboarding, whatever it is, pottery, when you get that first acceptance, you can't tell me that you're always going to want to grow on that.
Yeah.
Right?
It's true.
It's the shit.
Yeah.
It feels great. You feel like a person that's a person that has something to tell now. And I would say before I even started skating or doing anything like that, I got that feeling from making my class laugh or making people that weren't having a good day laugh. Like, I'm a funny guy. I'm not going to toot my own horn, but like, I like making people feel good. And if it's because I'm making a joke or I'm being a physical comedian, all that shit feels really good, especially when you see it on someone's face that you don't know.
You do have a dynamic vibe. You seem like you have a sense of humor that's ready to go.
Yeah, all the time.
And I have to add, like, the skateboarding, the cooking, the fatherhood. You're like a dad. You're a family guy, but also now it sounds like in adulthood you've taken to MMA and stuff. At the risk of being Providence's Joe Rogan, I'm gonna.
Yeah, right.
We have to talk about this. What made you like step into that ring?
So I started doing like competing in jiu-jitsu maybe almost 12 or maybe 14 years ago. Before I moved out of Rhode Island, I was training at a gym in East Greenwich called Battleground under a combat jiu-jitsu black belt. His name was Chris Jacobs. And they had a couple other people there that did striking and stuff. But at the time, I only was focusing on like no-gi jiu-jitsu and MMA. It was something that I really was drawn to. I saw it as human chess. At the time, I was probably working out some shit. So like striking was, appealed to me. Being able to maybe like not enforce my will on people, but being able to like, use moves to win, right? I was trying to win. It was something that I liked. I liked the feeling of like trying to outwork somebody and then also catch these like tricks because I came from a skating background. I looked at jiu-jitsu as like a personalized style of tricks that I could use to win, and I never looked at it as like, I'm going to break your arm. I'm going to do this. I'm going to fucking choke you out. But I did want to choke you out. Not going to lie, actually. I was looking to choke you out, but I wasn't looking to hurt anybody, right? Because you can wake up from a choke. But like, for the most part, I was in it to learn a lot of shit. And you can learn a lot of stuff really quick if you're really determined. And I poured into it. I was living by myself at the time. I was living with my brother who was in basic training, so he was never home. So I was just working in kitchens and going to the gym. And a lot of times I had a key to that gym and I would show up, I would clean, I would do everything, but I was there. If I wasn't skating or I wasn't working, I was at the gym. And for the most part, I stopped skating to be at the gym. And it was, I like no-gi jiu-jitsu. I really love that sport a lot. And gi and no-gi are two different sports. And, I feel like that's a whole nother conversation. And I do both now. What I'm doing now is gi. I'm at Providence. Shout out Providence BJJ. It's a really great spot.
Is this the purple place?
Yep. The purple building.
Seen that a bunch of times.
They rock. Professor Marco is a really, really good practitioner. And my boys really like it. I'm going there because this is their first venture into combat sports, and they have seen videos of me in the past, and they really are really diving in, and I'm really proud of them. It's a hard fucking thing. Like, my oldest will wake up, and he'll look at me and be like, or before he goes to bed after class and be like, my stomach hurts. And I'm like, as a dad, I'm like, do you have to poop? And it's like, no, that's not it. I realized like, he tore his muscles like fighting today, so I have to explain to him like, this is a hard sport. We're going to do things. You also have to do these things after the sport to recover so that you can go back and do the sport. You know, and they get it, you know, and they understand that I'm not like grinding on them at all,
right?
Because I want them to really want to go and do it. You know, any sport that I ever went into or anything like that, my parents never ground on me, never wanted me to, like, if I didn't want to go to practice, that's okay. They would ask me, but if I skipped a couple, then there'd be a problem. But it was never like, you have to be there, you have to do this. It was more like, we know that you want to do this.
Yeah.
You know, and there are certain things that I was really hard on myself. Like, once I got into fighting, I was hard on myself. My parents didn't need to be. I was already the person grinding on myself.
Yeah.
You know, I think I got that from my grandparents.
Both of these sports, I realize that they let somebody kind of explore their own excellence.
Sure.
Like one person at a time.
Yep.
That's
And
kind
there's
of
a lot
the
of
difference.
humility.
Yeah.
You're going to fall 500 times skating in the first month. You're going to get tapped out 500 times in the first week of doing any jiu-jitsu or any combat sport.
And it's just you. You can't blame it on somebody else. And
Nope.
you can't. It's your responsibility.
Yep.
That's interesting to me. Is that something that you relate to in a lot of your life?
Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, like when I was talking about high school sports, I kind of petered out because I got into like skating and smoking weed and hanging out with friends and being accepted. And I think the one thing that I wish I had known and kind of regret I didn't do was wrestling, because it's a great base for life in general. Even if you're not going to do any combat sports, wrestling is a really good base. You're going to get humiliated on a daily basis. You're going to learn that people are better than you, and they're going to learn that people are going to push you to be better because you're on a team. That's something I really wish I had done. And it's going to, if you're anxious about being around people or touching anybody, that sport in 100% will quell any of those things for you. You know what I mean? In 100%. You know, basketball, soccer, you're still away from people. Wrestling, it's like you're on them.
Yeah.
This is what it's like to be on somebody or whatever it is.
Yeah, no anxiety.
Yeah, not at all. It quells that in a second.
I mean, that's a really big deal. I like, so I've started working with this organization, or I think I'm going to start working with this organization that works with kids and music and stuff. And,
Oh, that's cool.
Like, anxiety is a big deal, and especially
Sure.
nowadays. And we've all seen, you know, that social media is a huge contributor to like rising levels in this or whatever. But the music is another one of those things that
Right.
I went and worked with this workshop group last night that is these classes that these kids take for music, and there was just no shyness, no
Oh, that's good.
anxiety. People were just like in professional workspaces with musicians, like they were just stepping in to do the job and stepping right back out. And one thing I remember noticing was somebody didn't know how to do something. Somebody was like, I don't know this part. There was no shame about it.
Sure.
This girl stepped in on the drums. She was a fucking bassist and singer, but she put those down for a second to step over to the drums to teach this guy how to play this part. And there was no weird, like,
Stigma or whatever.
no
it is.
stigmas
Yeah.
about it. No weird, like, hey, I'm the drummer, don't teach me anything.
Right.
No egos inflated. Like, just anxiety free, shyness free,
Learning, whatever it is. Yeah.
and self empowering and shit
Sure.
like that. And it was kind of beautiful, you know. It was kind of
Yeah.
cool to see.
Yeah.
See it all play out. See people being competent.
And I feel like that's part of the skate park life, or, you know, that doesn't even have to like be just the skate park. Like, I feel like it transcends to like gaming communities or whatever it is, like whatever the community is, as long as there's like that vibe of, you know, you're here to do the thing that we like doing. We're not going to shit on you because you don't know how to do it yet because you just started. That can be in any community. And
Yeah.
I feel like that should be in any community, right?
Yeah.
And I think once it becomes, to get back to those three avenues, once it becomes competitive, that's where it changes a little bit, right?
That's when you want to be the best.
That's when you want to be the best. That's when you're shitting on people or you're talking about someone's sister, whatever it is, right? Because
Yeah.
you're trying to get in that person's head, or you're trying to be the best, or whatever it is. Like, you know, that is, and I won't even say corrupts. I think that is just, it is what it is when it becomes competition.
Yeah, it changes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It changes. I think there's a little bit of love lost. I think there's a lot more, you know, bragging rights, but that's not even the right term. It's
Like comparison.
for sure.
Yeah.
You know, let's say, you know, and competitiveness should be the part that drives you to be better. let's say you're the best, right? Let's say somebody's trying to come to be the best. You can't shit on them for what they're trying to do that you did.
Yeah.
That's not fair. At least let them drive you to keep being the best until maybe you're not. I don't know anybody that's ever been the best at anything that hasn't been the best forever.
Before I drop the big question,
Okay.
We got to talk about cooking as another art form that you've been involved in.
Yeah, for sure.
For forever. You've been involved in cooking for 28 years, you said.
Yep.
So when that started, did you know that it was going to be something that you actually took seriously and liked?
No, when I started working in kitchens for sure, it was I worked as a dishwasher at Yagoo ski area a long time ago. You know, this is like 1990, 93 maybe, because I could still work at 13 then. So yeah, I started working there. That was my first kitchen job ever, was working as a dishwasher in the winter season. And from there I worked summer, winter there. I would do was like a lifeguard / water slide operator, because they had water slides there in the summertime. And they also did catering. So my second summer there, I actually got to do some cooking catering, which I got to do like large volume over fire type shit, which that I realized I really liked. Being a show in front of people and giving them things they wanted and loved. You kidding me? I love that shit. And I got to be myself. You didn't have to be anybody else but yourself when you're doing that. You know what I mean? There's nothing. You just be yourself. So I really like that. And then after that, I think it was like I did back-to-back winter, summer, and my dad was the ski school instructor at Yagoo for the longest time, so that was my practice mountain for when I started competing in winter sports, and then he did that. I stopped working there and moved to local restaurants in Wakefield, South County area, and then my dad actually moved to Wachusett Mountain to do the ski school instruction. He was the head of ski school there. So when I was still trying to compete a bunch, that was my other practice mountain. So I stayed on the East Coast for the most part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And so cooking was just a thing that you fell into and
came really naturally to me. My mom taught me how to cook. I have 2 younger brothers that are 9 and 10 years younger than me. So like when my mom was at work, I was finishing cooking or I was plating. You know, I was giving people dinner. My dad was a Finnish carpenter for the longest time. So he was either on a job site. My mom was still at work towards like 6:37. I would get off the bus. My mom would do like a full chicken in a crock pot. I would finish it. You know what I mean? So like from then, I just realized that cooking came really easy. I could get a pretty decent wage after doing it from such a young age and having experience. So I went from a dishwasher to working at Yagoo in the actual kitchen. So cooking like, you know, breakfast, lunch. There was no real dinners. It was just like sandwiches and burgers, stuff like that. And then after that, I think my first kitchen job was that wasn't Yagoo, was probably Italian Village in Wakefield, which isn't there anymore. I don't know what's there now. It's another restaurant now. But yeah, I think that was the first actual after Yagoo was Italian Village. And I worked there at night after school, and on the summers I worked doubles all the time, just banging them out.
And so you just said that you might have just answered this, but was it from the start that you were just like, yeah, I'm just good at this, and like there's no question that I'm good at this?
I don't even think I realized I was good at it. I think I realized that I liked this atmosphere, this like, you know, at that time there was like a good amount of creative freedom, you know, like there wasn't cooking shows yet. There wasn't any of that shit. And if there was cooking shows, it was like Julia Child and Yan Can't Cook. I don't fucking know. Right. I still don't watch cooking shows. I don't watch them at all. I leave work at work. I don't fucking watch that shit at home.
Do you cook for the family a lot?
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time. And my fiance is a great cook. She's a bartender by heart. She is a hardcore bartender. I've seen her fuck up a bar for the longest time. But she is an amazing cook. We both cook. I love cooking even when I'm not at home. I mean, not at work, you know. I don't let work destroy that like love that I have for cooking for people that I love.
That's very cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think I heard early on there's a quote, and it was like cooking for someone is like saying you love them without saying I love you, you know, or something like that, paraphrasing.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's me at 100%. You know, if someone's having a bad day, I got you.
Okay. So as we approach the wrap up time, we got to ask some of the big questions.
Yeah.
We've talked about a couple of different interesting domains, MMA, and
Yeah.
so you're in that world. You're in the skate world as well as the graffiti world and the cooking world. I would like to ask you what you have learned from these different disciplines. Like, what are some things you've really taken out of these crafts that you're in?
I think the overlap for all of them is creativity, and I think freedom of expression. Because when I think about cooking, I'm gonna be out of the box. I'm gonna take things that people love and recreate. I'm gonna express myself in that regard. When it comes to skating, it's the same thing. I'm gonna use my personal style to express how I love this sport. Same thing with jiu-jitsu. You learn the basics. Everybody learns an armbar. Everybody learns a choke. But it's how you get to those end results is how you trick, how you trade, how you get people to bait them into that. So I find that I take skating and my creativity in that world and snowboarding, I brought them into that MMA jiu-jitsu world of I'm going to be different. I'm going to have a different style and I'll have my own style, but get to that end result of winning or slash whatever it is, tap out or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so let's see, that's in graffiti. It's a no-brainer, man. Like, you just get to express yourself, and people get to see that, and they get to formulate their own idea of who that person is. A lot of my graffiti names wouldn't what you would expect maybe to me to write, because a lot of times it's like coming maybe from deep, or it's coming from something that I find to be more expressive that people don't know about me, things like that. So I think the overlap is 100% creative expression and freedom of expression to express yourself.
I love that.
Yeah.
I have been recently engaging in some conversations that sort of I've been analyzing individuality a lot as it relates to something like the collective or like the expected or the prominent culture, the
Sure.
norm. Yeah. What is it about creativity that makes it so important, that is so fulfilling, I guess, for you, for it to be the thing that threads all these things together?
I think it's maybe the want to be heard, or show that you are not the norm, or you're just a one of a kind, right? It's hard to be the best when everyone's the same, right? That's the hardest thing, probably. And I think that's why I gravitated to sports that aren't super mainstream. It's easier to maybe shine through, and I'm not saying that that's an easy way to become the best. I'm just saying it's easier to be seen in a smaller pond.
Yeah.
Right? Something like that. And I'm not in any way taking away from people that play mainstream sports and being the best. I 100% believe that it is probably the hardest. You have multiple teams of multiple people that you have to be the best at. That's fucking nuts. And I feel like now that skating is so popular, surfing is in the Olympics, skating is in the Olympics, snowboarding is in the Olympics. It's harder now. It's harder to be seen unless you're doing street videos or you're sponsored by a company that is local and you're just doing what the fuck you want to do. And I think that was always the goal for me, was to be comfortable in life and do something I really love doing, and people could see that, and that's why I like cooking so much. Is let's say you come into my restaurant that maybe I don't even own, but I come in, I work at, you get to literally eat my art every day, and you're happy as fuck to destroy it and eat it. I love that shit, and people come back. They're like, oh my God. And if it's not the same, it's not consistent, they're fucking pissed, because consistency is key when it comes to food, because it is an art form. It is something that makes people extremely happy about their own lives. You know what I mean?
I do.
And I love that. I love working in open kitchens where I can bust your balls while you're waiting and you're pissed. And then when you get that food and I'm like, how fucking good was how worth was the wait? And they're like, oh my God. You know what I mean? That shit's the best feeling in the world.
I love the idea of eating someone's art.
Yeah.
I love the idea of visible risks, I think, and that ties in so perfectly, I think, to what brings us here. Venture is a word that means, a risk, an endeavor that's like a difficult or weird or maybe not obvious why you would take it undertaking.
Right.
So a question I want to ask you, I want to ask everyone, I want to know about some of the greatest risks that you've taken in your life, those that have paid off the most.
Whew. I think one of the first ones was just kind of diving into the whole chef lifestyle. I was couch surfing and living in my car at certain times of the year and realizing that, I have no responsibilities at this time. I don't have a family yet. I rarely have any bills. My bills were like a cell phone and my car registration and gas. So if I can work as much as I can and stack all this money and kind of being in this weird risk-taking vibe of like sleeping on couches, living in my car in the summer, I'd do that because I'm not paying any bills. I have no student loans and I am figuring out who I am, So that was a big risk of kind of just being like, I'm going to embrace this lifestyle of 65, 70 hours a week. And just, that's my life. And not spending money or trying not to spend money. But like trying to do that so that like, then I can take another risk maybe and move or do something like that. And I got to that point. I think my next risk was like moving out of state, trying to feel who I was, not having like a support system and stuff like that. And that can be fucking scary, right? Maybe you moved with 3 people and you're banking on your support system being these 2 other roommates of yours and their lives are totally up to them. Like, you can't control their lives. So that's a big risk, moving away from a support system. Like you said, like this is your first venture into that, feeling confident in your skill set of decision making and life skills and all that. I think life in general is the biggest risk.
Yeah.
Graduation is probably the biggest risk of your life, right? Unless you didn't live with your parents and you moved out at like 12, I feel like graduation is the scariest risk that happens to you at first, and I think living in Rhode Island and having that summer's coming, I've got money coming, was something that I kind of relied on for a while. I knew I could get a job anywhere. I knew I could work anywhere. I knew that people that I had worked for previously would take me back. So I had to make it 4 months, 5 months sometimes, maybe without a job or working a weird, shitty job or, living on my friend's couch. And I think breaking out of that mindset of that lifestyle from where I grew up was a big risk. That kind of freaked me out the first time. Like, fuck, like I've got to work all the time. Like there's no break coming. I'm not going to have this break. I've got to work now. Like this is what it is. So like, that kind of freaked me out. Having kids is a big risk, because then you have to think about, you're not only thinking about yourself, you're thinking about this person. And you want to make sure that their life's better than yours. That's always the vibe. I feel like I've never met anybody who's like, I'll just give them the same life I had. That's not what it is. Once you have a kid, it's for real. It's like, I never want them to eat what I was eating. You know what I mean? So like that plays into every other risk that I've ever taken after that. And I think just realizing that risks are a part of life. And risk management or assessment is something like a skill you might want to get good at early. I feel like that isn't taught. No one is taught that.
Yeah.
That your life is about to be a whole fucking series of risks, right? You're going to have a great time. You're going to have a bunch of good times. But for the most part, it's a risk assessment on a daily basis.
Yeah, man. You summarized something that I didn't even know until I took this on. It's not something that... I don't think I was aware that I was avoiding this before I thought about moving, and when it got really serious and when it was like, oh, you're going to be in a new community.
Yeah.
And what I realized was, oh shit, like that's the thing is when you do that, you not only have to be kind of good at dealing with what you have to do when you enter into a new community, I guess it seems, is like actually bring your skill set with you and put them on display and be like a good person and be, like the stakes change so much because you don't have this thing that you've relied on your whole life to kind of fall back on, and you actually have to kind of you have to rise to the occasion and be likable and all this stuff. And,
Sure.
And you have to
Accepting to other people. And,
yeah. And you have to like be like, okay, well, this is what I have to offer. You actually have to advocate for yourself and stuff like that. And as my move was approaching, I started to realize these are things that are going to be like, that's what's going to be called like out of me.
Sure.
And additionally, my cost of living has gone up, and I'm going to have to work more. I'm going to have to work harder, and like my ambition is going to have to get sharper.
Maybe promote yourself, right? Maybe you're not comfortable doing that, right? I'm a
Very
humble
much
motherfucker, man. Like I don't. There are certain things that I'm cocky about because I'm confident about them. But for the most part, I'm not out there being like, I'll cook at your wedding. Like, I'll do all this shit. Like, that's, if you want me to, I will fucking kill it. But I'm not out there trying to, like, chase ambulances.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's just not who I am.
Yeah.
But I will be confident and, like, sing my praises on things that I've maybe done and I feel confident about. You know what I mean? And I think that carries over from those risks that you took, back to the skate park or whatever it is. You fucking did those things, you know what I mean? And other people saw you do them and talk about them, which, give you that gratification of like, fuck, I did that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. My fiance, she's a reseller, so she just started a new business. I'm also trying to start to do food pop-ups with those vintage resellers. Our first pop-up got kind of derailed. I had to postpone it because of like life situations, but that's our plan. She's a dog walker, but we have these other businesses that are side hustles, but want to be full-time businesses that we want to grow. And this is a good community to do it in.
Yeah. Why don't we, as we wrap up, why don't we just mention that really quickly? Like what it is you do and have coming up, and like maybe you could talk a little bit about what you're doing with pop-ups and, I don't know, maybe like actually plug some stuff so people could know how to follow along.
Yeah, so
I will mention I don't have much of a Rhode Island following right now, but whatever.
Yeah, whatever. That's fine. I would love to help boost that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, appreciate it.
So my thing is, I'm a chef. I'm usually pretty loyal at every restaurant I work at. I like to build restaurants from the ground up. So if there's a new restaurant opening, I want to get in there so I can help them build the most efficient systems and have a really good glow up. Like then that looks good on me. I've helped you do that. It looks good on my resume and stuff like that. But I really like doing that. I like helping, like, say, an owner, maybe / head chef, visualize their dream and get it off the ground. Because that's what I want to do someday. So I really like doing that. I'm a really good number 2. I get a little crazy hectic as a head chef because, like, maybe I am a little OCD and a little perfectionist, right? So, like, it's nice to be a number 2 where, like, I can implement things, but I can leave work at work and go home. So yeah, like when I work at a place, that's usually what I'm doing. But with pop-ups, my pop-up name is Sinner Snacks. I'm gonna get my Instagram and stuff up soon. But basically, it's usually like 1 or 2 food items accompanied with like some kind of vintage pop-up or like art or photography, something like that, where there's multiple communities coming together to like kind of build a bigger community for everybody.
Love it.
So yeah, Sinner Snacks is like what I'm trying to do, and then my fiance's her reselling account is called Anthea Threads on Instagram, and it's all vintage. It's usually some Y2K, but vintage from like the 20s and 30s, and she's got a good vibe on. It's like soft, comfortable, old, cool. That's her vibe. She does a really good job, and together we're just trying to build those 2 businesses. Because the communities around here for that are just growing on a daily basis. What I see, food, clothing, and art, and music is just booming in Providence, which is awesome. Yeah, and it's seasonal, so like you gotta get that vibe, right? So like seasonal, like for you, music could be outside, and then once winter comes, you're all inside. Things like that. You just gotta get the vibe of that seasonality because it'll never change in the state, ever. It'll never fucking change.
Yeah, dude. I have noticed that there's a vibrancy going on. Like when I first started researching Providence, when I was like thinking of coming here, I was like, well, there's some venues that I've found, but I haven't found a ton. Yeah. Then when I got here, I realized there's so much more shit going on. There's so many more venues. It's like
even surrounding towns. Pawtucket, everywhere.
I believe it. I mean, where I'm from, I think Instagram is like way bigger of a focus for people, and it's just to like
promote and stuff like that.
Promoting shit and like what it's
show off.
Yeah, shit maybe is more visible, and people have and not that doesn't happen in Providence. There's some really well promoted, well marketed places, but I've noticed there's just a lot of shit that's like community based, and that's
Sure.
how you know about it. Like,
Yeah, and I feel like Instagram helps to tell people like, yo, I'm over here right now.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's like, oh, there's like flyers. You know, it's very like
Yeah.
in your face while you're out.
there's zines.
Yeah.
There's,
Oh, yeah.
and there's
100%.
like, yeah, we went to,
Flyers
well,
are-
actually, we went to a show above your jiu-jitsu studio. In that,
You know what? It's funny. I've been going to the jiu-jitsu studio for a while. What is that place upstairs?
it is what used to be called Lost Bag Space. They just
Okay.
moved there from somewhere else.
Okay.
But yeah, we went one night.
And it's
There was
just an
like
open
a-
venue kind of thing?
It's like an open venue, it seems accommodating. And then one night there was a punk show that we went to, or kind
Sick.
of a post-punk, like
Sure.
very poppy, pretty, but like they were raunchy too. It was cool.
Got it.
And then the next day they had like a community art yard sale going on. And we went
right.
down there and there was like bread for sale, but there were drawings for sale. There were clothes
Cool.
for sale. Very cool.
Yeah, I've seen the like upstairs, and I know it's art based. I just don't know what it is because we're going into the gym. Like,
Yeah.
when we're going in, and the boys are like, so, and I'm like, let's go. We gotta get to class. You know,
Well, next time I find out what's going on over there,
Yeah.
I'll shoot you a text.
I'll have to follow them too because I should. They're right upstairs.
Yeah.
That's funny because you say that because the other day I was like, man, I wonder what happens up here.
Yeah, they got cool shit going on.
Cool.
Man, so I am very glad that we met each other at the dog park
For
the other
sure.
day. Marble has been a great little companion to help me meet people, and she
Oh,
helped
yeah.
me meet you. So,
She's a really good dog.
yeah, man, she's fun.
Yeah.
Man, I'm really grateful for your time and also for you just like sharing your story with me.
Yeah, no
And
problem.
I don't know if
Anytime.
I don't know if I'll keep this part or not, but because it might be a little too cute. But good luck in all of your ventures.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah,
Same.
I look forward to us hanging out again.
Yeah, for sure.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Venture. If you want to be one of the first people to access new episodes when they come out, I have a Patreon that is for my music as well as my podcasting interests. It is patreon.com/Tyler Nail. Feel free to join there.